Virtual assets, such as cryptocurrencies, have been vulnerable to financial crime risks. In response, governments and international organizations, including the Financial Action Task Force, the United Nations, the World Bank, and many others, have worked to address these risks. One key focus of these efforts has been the regulation of virtual asset service providers. So what exactly are they? A virtual asset service provider, or VASP, is defined by the Financial Action Task Force, the global standard setter for anti-money laundering and counterfinancing of terrorism. Under the FATF framework, a VASP is any business that acts as an intermediary and conducts virtual asset activities on behalf of others. This includes exchanging virtual assets for fiat or other virtual assets, transferring them, safeguarding or administering them, or participating in and providing financial services related to an issuer's offer or sale of a virtual asset. Because of this intermediary role, virtual asset service providers sit at the center of how value moves through the digital asset ecosystem. One of the key tools available to VA service providers in preventing financial crime is the identification of red flags. These red flags are not isolated incidents, but clusters of behavior and patterns of activity that do not make commercial or operational sense. In this video, we will walk through some of the most recurring red flag indicators for virtual asset service providers, grouped across 6 key categories. Let's start with the first. Red flags linked to counterparty VA service providers often begin with a simple reality. Every virtual asset transaction has 2 sides, and when one side operates with weak controls, the risk does not stay contained. It spreads to the entire transaction. This is why counterparties matter so much. A common warning sign is a VASP operating from a jurisdiction with weak or unclear virtual asset regulation. Another is when a counterparty applies little or no KYC or CDD, maintains poor record-keeping practices, or operates through an ownership structure that is opaque or difficult to verify. And when there are no clear AML policies or no evidence that governance frameworks actually function in practice, the risk becomes even harder to ignore. And then there is the travel rule. Negligible implementation or failure to transmit originator and beneficiary information is not a minor technical gap. It is a material compliance risk. Let's move to the second category, the transactions themselves. This is often where risk becomes most visible because transaction behavior tends to tell the most honest story. Patterns such as small transactions deliberately structured below reporting thresholds, spread across multiple days or wallets, are one early signal. Another is sudden bursts of high-value transfers, particularly when they originate from new, dormant, or otherwise unusual accounts. Risk also becomes clear when funds arrive from unrelated wallets and are quickly withdrawn off platform, suggesting the VASP is being used as a pass-through rather than a genuine service. And when transactions are linked to darknet markets, ransomware activity, sanctioned jurisdictions, or stolen assets, the warning signs become even more difficult to ignore. The third category involves anonymity and obfuscation, and this is where the risk is often closely tied to the technology itself. Virtual asset systems are designed to enable speed, privacy, and global access, but those same features can be deliberately misused to break traceability. This is often seen through immediate conversions into privacy-enhancing coins, the use of mixers, tumblers, or coinjoin protocols, and routing transactions through anonymity networks such as Tor or VPNs. Frequent reliance on hardware or unhosted wallets combined with cross-border transfers further reduces visibility. Another common signal is the use of multi-hop or high-speed transactions, intentionally designed to disrupt blockchain heuristics and make tracing activity more difficult. The fourth category focuses on senders and recipients. Many laundering schemes begin with basic identity manipulation rather than complex technology. This often shows up as multiple accounts created using the same IP address or device, repeated onboarding attempts with slightly altered personal details, or identity documents that appear forged, altered, or inconsistent. Another warning sign is behavior that does not align with a customer's stated occupation or financial profile. Virtual asset service providers are also increasingly encountering scam victim and money mule activity, as well as account access that follows the installation of remote access software, a common feature in fraud schemes. The fifth category relates to the source of funds and the source of wealth, and this is where explanations become critical. When a customer refuses to provide source of funds information or offers vague explanations that cannot be verified, the issue is no longer about paperwork. It is a risk issue, and when incoming funds originate from offshore or unregulated gambling platforms, shell companies, or opaque ownership structures with no clear economic rationale, the exposure becomes even more significant. The sixth and final category relates to geographical risk. Location matters in virtual asset activity, particularly when transactions involve jurisdictions with weak regulatory oversight or inconsistent implementation of international standards. Transfers that move rapidly across borders or pass through multiple jurisdictions without a clear commercial rationale often point to attempts to exploit regulatory gaps. In practice, geographical risk rarely appears on its own and is usually connected with other warning signs across counterparties, transactions, and customer behavior. This is why a risk-based approach matters. No single indicator confirms criminal intent, but clusters of unusual behavior often signal potential misuse long before it becomes an enforcement case. This is especially important as the UAE continues to strengthen its AML, CFT, and CPF framework through Federal Decree Law No. 10 of 2025, its executive regulations, and enhanced enforcement measures across regulated entities. For virtual asset service providers in the UAE, identifying red flags sits at the very core of an effective compliance capability and is essential for remaining compliant with regulatory requirements. This brings us to how AKW Consultants supports virtual asset service providers operating in the UAE. We work closely with VARA and other regulatory authorities to help firms understand risk and implement effective controls. We strengthen KYC and ongoing due diligence processes, assist in screening and integrating transaction monitoring controls using best-in-class analytics solutions, support travel rule implementation, draft and enhance AML, CFT, and CPF policies, assist with STR filing, deliver staff training, and provide outsourced MLRO services. As an organization awarded for designing the AML framework for the UAE's first licensed cryptocurrency trading company, AKW Consultants relentlessly work to protect the integrity of UAE's virtual asset space. Strengthening trust in the virtual asset ecosystem. AKW Consultants.